Good morning, everyone. Dr. Vicky here, speaking to you from the Caesar Transformation Healing Center. Today is what is it? Wednesday? Yep. Okay, I'm doing good. Wednesday, the 25th of September, and the moon is in Cancer. We had an early morning, 7:07 this morning. Opposition between Mercury, the planet of the mind, and Neptune, the planet of our imagination. Oppositions bring awareness. It's when two planets are as far apart as they can be. So reality is as far apart from idealism, illusion, perhaps delusion in some cases. Now, Neptune in its nature is not a negative force necessarily, but it's a dissolving force. And so when we're dealing with Neptune, it's really hard to pin anything down. However, it does open us up to the more spiritual side of ourselves, opens us up to finer vibrations, as it were. And that can help us with our imagination. If we open up to this energy, perhaps it can inform us on levels that not everybody is naturally informed upon, the more psychic, subtle levels. Now, if you're a psychic, subtle person, hey, you know how to deal with well, I don't know if you know how to deal with this. I have a prominent Neptune in my chart, and it's actually a good aspect in my chart. I don't really have a negative aspect to Neptune, which is very helpful. But even so, most of my life, the line between reality and what I imagine it could be is thin. It's great for your imagination. It's actually great when you're sort of in a situation that's difficult. You can go in another place, so to speak, and sort of ease the tension of that, but it can be quite confusing. So some folks are going to feel confused today. Other folks are going to feel like the door to the magic realm has opened. So whoever you might be, just know that it's very expansive vision, but maybe not so realistic. Okay. The other thing that's happening today is there are two synodic cycles. A synodic cycle is the cycle between two planets from conjunction to conjunction. Certain synodic cycles are monthly. The new moon is the synodic cycle. When the sun and the moon move together, it takes a month for them to go, or a little less than that. I think 28 or 29 days. I can't remember technically, from new moon to new moon. I think it's 29 point something. All right. Some are yearly, like say the Sun and Jupiter. The Sun-Jupiter cycle takes a year from Sun-Jupiter conjunction to the next Sun-Jupiter conjunction. And because Jupiter spends about a year in a sign, those conjunctions usually happen in each of the zodiacal signs. Sometimes there's Jupiter's not in very long, sometimes it's in a little bit longer, and there might be two Sun-Jupiter conjunctions within a sign, okay? And then there are the ones that are with Mars. All of Mars synodic cycles are 2 years long, okay? Now we have one of those coming to a point in their cycle, and that is Mars-Uranus semi-square. 45 degrees, Mars, further Uranus, and then 45 degrees past Uranus is Mars. Now, the natural energy of Mars-Uranus is to take action to free yourself from something, okay? There's a lot of, and of course Mars can get pretty angry. The nature of the semi-square is not one of expansion, it's one of consolidation. The energy is moving back in, and Uranus and Mars, neither one of those planets are particularly interested in moving back in. If it was up to them, they would just continue to fly off into space, but they don't. They have a cycle. It's like breathing. We breathe in, we breathe out, we breathe in, we breathe out. Same things with planets. So that cycle will create a lot of frustration. People will feel like they're being held back in a way that frustrates them. So be careful, because there's a lot of frustrated people out there today. You may be one of them, but at least you know now why. Ultimately, if we want to truly be free with Mars Uranus, we have to be responsible. We have to, and that's true of any cycle. Without responsibility, you can't have freedom. So, of course, one of the lessons of Mars Uranus is to learn responsibility, sometimes through pushback, right? Through pushback. Okay. And then the second synodic cycle that's also at a semi-square today is the cycle between Pluto and Saturn. Now, that's a long cycle. The last time Pluto Saturn the last time Pluto Saturn came together was 2020. It was January 12, 2020. Some people, a lot of astrologers call it the COVID conjunction. Usually when there's a conjunction between Saturn and Pluto, both archetypes of death, by the way, there's usually some sort of deadly something, right? Like COVID was one. The one before that happened in 1982, and that was the AIDS epidemic. That's the word I'm looking for. So now that doesn't mean that like death is coming and the epidemic is getting worse. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that the cycle between Saturn and Pluto are at a semi-square. Again, it's this energy moving in, right? It's about containment to a certain extent. And so it's not necessarily a negative thing in the larger scheme of things. It's a natural occurring thing. Breathe in, breathe out kind of thing. Hi, Charlie. How you doing? You good? All right. Running through the garden is. But it does have a similar frustrating energy. Says it's important at this time to be determined and adaptable. Confrontations lead nowhere. So we have two energies here where in one, the shorter cycle, the 2-year synodic cycle between Uranus and Mars can bring frustration, anger, because it wants to be free. Now, the interesting thing about Pluto and Saturn is both those planets like control. So it's actually a more aligned energy to be in the semi-square with those two planets than with the other two planets. So we have two planets who would rather contain things, moving into containment, and we have two planets that would rather just not contain anything, moving into a containment cycle. So this is a balance day between expansion, contraction. As long as you're persistent and you're not impulsive, you should be okay today. So be careful on the roads. That's going to be an important thing. As I said, people are going to be angry and pissed off. Just, a lot of people are angry and pissed off. You do not have to. If you see that, like you're driving and you see somebody being erratic and being aggressive and they're on your ass as you're driving, just pull over. Don't try to make a point. Just say, all right, you want to go? Go ahead. Right? I always see them as, remember the old days when you had radar detectors? Now I just let the people who are like insistent on getting ahead of me in crazy ways go ahead of me, and I see if they're pulled over when I get there. So that's how I do it. Anyway, have yourself a great day, guys. Be careful out there. It is a little bit dicey, but a lot can happen. A lot of things can get accomplished today. There's a sense of accomplishment with these aspects as well. All right. Take care, everyone. Namaste.